check. Mic check. Dyer, maybe mic check.
It doesn't matter if it's gonna break as soon as you go live.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap from Behind Enemy Lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Alongside me is my co-host, Fox Treves. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I decided to have you on the show today, so I try something.
I appreciate
different.
it. It's nice being invited back on.
Yeah, I've been doing the show for a real long time on my own, so it's nice to have a guest again on my Saturday show.
And I hear during my long sabbatical you actually learned how to do audio. Congratulations.
I don't want to oversell it, but I may have accidentally done it correctly one or two times.
You tripped it a little backflip and managed to get it right. Got it.
It's twice a day.
All right. So I also want to thank the sponsors of today's show, which is you peoples out there who donate to us financially and make this show happen. Thank you very much to Ori Main, Nathan Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke Golem, Lone Fury, Thundra Erican, who is female, by the way, Strong Arm, Hellraiser Zalon, who just commented in the chat, by the way, White Lion, and a special thank you to Timberwolf for your donations and for boosting us on Discord. Also, any donation that's through Streamlabs that says it's for Operation Homefront will go to Operation Homefront minus whatever fees that PayPal charges us. But other than that, it's all going. In any case, if you don't donate to us financially, we still very much appreciate you guys helping us out. And the best thing you can do to help make this channel grow is to take the few seconds it takes to hit that share button. It might be very little effort on your part, but it means a lot to us. For you to share this video helps us grow, helps give us a bigger audience. So we very much appreciate that. To hit that share button. Wow, I just heard my own voice there for a second.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Just continue on.
Oh, right.
It wasn't anything I did for sure. I wouldn't. Definitely don't want to say I did that.
So the rumors about your prowess with audio may have been oversold. Alrighty then.
All right.
So let's move into our first little video before we get into our actual stories. You guys may have seen this video of Nick Fuentes trying to confront Ben Shapiro on his way into a Turning Point America, I think is what they're called, right?
Turning Point USA.
Turning Point USA event. You might not know, but Ben Shapiro finally did a little bit of a tirade response to the questions that Nick Fuentes supporters have been throwing at him, because they go to Turning Point USA events and his events, and they give questions in support of white nationalism, and they're doing this to try to troll Turning Point USA and Ben Shapiro. And finally, Ben Shapiro, after having been goaded, tore apart all of their belief systems, all the principles they believe in one go, and said, "This is my comment on this. I'm not going to keep addressing it every single time." So
mostly because they're paper thin arguments and don't require a lot of effort to go through.
Yeah, how many times you guys say, "No, I don't support racism"?
No, I don't think actually that the state should be in charge of enforcing racial-based morality.
Exactly. It wasn't a hard argument to fight. Well, Nick Fuentes, believing he is super smart and big-brained, felt that it would be a good idea to, since he's been called out for saying stupid things and believing stupid things, that he should go confront someone on the street to debate them in the middle of the street, I guess, with his family. So let's watch the video.
All right. As per usual, this being our first video of the stream, please yell at me in chat if you cannot hear the audio.
Ben, it's great to see you.
Oh no. Oh no.
Love the
How did you give a 45-minute speech about me at Stanford, and you won't even look at my direction?
Hey, he's with his kids.
Come on, I'm right here. Only hey, let him cross, man. Let him cross. I know you're with your family, but I can't get to anywhere else. A 45-minute speech. Wow. Well, that's our free speech warrior, everybody. Champion of the battle of ideas.
All right, Nick Fuentes, you complete moron. You still have your freedom of speech. You do not have a freedom to his time. You won't have a freedom to debate anyone you want to debate. You can still go and say anything you want on your platform or go do your own events, but you don't have a right to debating him right there in the middle of the street. He has a right to continue going about his business. People pay Ben Shapiro a lot of money for his appearances. You are not worth his time. Plain and simple.
And I mean, he's already given the opportunity. I know I don't know. That's a big thing with these lefties is kind of a thing. It was like, oh, why don't you debate me? And I was like, oh, all right, well, why don't you set up an event? I guess I don't know. But the place to debate's not in the middle of the street, especially when he's with his family. That's at least have some class. That gets into this whole issue of, we're ideological political enemies, but when you start, going to people's houses, going and finding their families, that kind of a thing. He's clearly in public. Have some respect. You can have all the disagreement you want with him politically, but when you're going after him while he's with his family, that's when you've lost respect for him, and that's not good discourse. That's not getting Shapiro to think, oh yeah, this is going to be a respectful, honest conversation to have with him. No, I'd be like, all right, this is a guy that came and found me and was yelling at me while I was with my kids, and now I got to explain to my kids why are people yelling at me and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, a debate requires consent from both individuals to be in the debate. And this is akin to going to someone who's like shopping at the grocery store and trying to force them to debate you in the aisle of the grocery store. That's not a debate. That's you harassing them. There's a big difference. So, yeah, this doesn't make you look smart. This doesn't make you make it look like you've won the argument. It makes you look like an asshole.
Yes. And like Ben said, he's gone through the arguments, the discussions with Fuentes and the supporters there. Those are usually not rewarding debates. It's usually circle talk and focusing in on, nuances of semantic usages of words, or talking about events that happened 70 years ago that keep them up at night for some reason. It's not good debate. And I do agree to a certain extent, though, that Shapiro does do a lot of easy debates. He does a lot more discussion nowadays than he does doing debates. And I think we've talked about, he's built up this image that he's like, the top debater, or, one of the top debaters. And now it's, it'd be really costly for him to lose a debate. I don't think that he would lose one per se against Fuentes. But I do think that it's a reasonable critique that Shapiro isn't willing to engage in debate with everybody, and there's a lot of reasons why he doesn't do that. Now, if Fuentes' group could come up with somebody in their movement that is a rational, capable debater that is going in with the actual motivation to discuss and figure out and come to a better understanding of themselves and Ben Shapiro's positions, maybe they could have an honest debate about it, but I haven't seen that from any of them, certainly not from Fuentes. It's an issue that you run into where if the debate's not going to be fruitful, then there's not a ton of point in doing it. Ben's a busy guy, but... Yeah.
And if you've already have a lot of the body of your work that people can go back and watch of you making arguments, it's not really necessary for you to go then make the same exact argument, especially when they're very, very shallow arguments. Like, there's not a whole lot to having to explain why you think racism is bad, right? You don't have to, though, go then and do debates to make those arguments. You can just... Someone can respond, like Fuentes can respond to his video about his opinions.
And he has done that.
And he can keep doing that. And he's still free speech. Well, he's mocking him, being, oh, look at this free speech warrior. Yeah, you still have your free speech. He's fighting for your free speech too, you dumbass.
Yeah, that's true. It's the freedom of speech is not the freedom to it temporarily enslave somebody into a debate with you. That's not
Exactly.
That's not freedom of speech.
Like, I don't have the freedom to make AOC debate me, right? I can't force her to do that. I can ask her if I wanted to, and she wouldn't do it because she won't debate anybody with a brain.
Well, she'd think that you were hitting on her. Like, she was pretty sure that Ben Shapiro was hitting on her when he did that to her.
Right. No one's hitting on you, AOC.
I think the other issue with it is that I don't think that there's the left has this a lot where their positions are very predictable, and I think Fuentes' positions are very predictable too. Spending the small amount of time that I have reviewing his content, I haven't spent a long time reviewing his content, and I know he has hours and hours, probably hundreds of hours of content out there, but just the few hours that I have watched is very repetitious. So I can pretty much guarantee you that it's going to come up that, Ben Shapiro's part of the Jews and they're trying to take over the world and they blew up the ships 80 years ago. And, what's Ben going to say to that? It's not okay. No, he's not going to agree with that position. You're not going to be able to make any progress with that. Fuentes is going to continue on with, immigrants, culture is, tied to your DNA. And he thinks that science proves that. And Ben Shapiro knows that science doesn't prove that. And they're not going to make any progress on that. But it's a very predictable position. He's going to talk about the bell curve and say that, but blacks don't have the mental fortitude as an average, that average is good enough to describe all of them individually, and that we should probably look at moving them out of the country and getting them their own country. That's not those are very predictable positions, and there's nothing for Ben to do about that other than say, nope, you're wrong, and here's a bunch of reasons why, and then Fuentes is going to cite some books from the 70s about the bell curve and that sort of stuff, and say, oh no, I'm right. And then they're not going to make any progress. It's not going to be a fruitful debate. What Fuentes is looking for is, sound bites, zingers, one-liners, and his best hope would be to get Ben Shapiro to say something that he can pull out of context. That would be the only thing that he's looking to do.
And that's what people who debate like the way he debates, that's what they do. They will intentionally misconstrue something you've said and then accuse you of having said something you didn't say, and then make arguments off of that during the debate. So that's something, what's his name? I forgot the debater's name. He's not a fast talker like Nick Fuentes is as well. But let's move on to the next video. The actual funny video.
Yes. This first segment is supposed to be funny videos, and Dyer put this video up, which is an interesting video. It's not a funny video, though. My video is funny. I have to find it, though. It is this one. Okay. Sound up.
Run the risk, as some Republicans have said, of looking like you're playing games with impeachment if you hold on to these articles for too long.
I said what I was going to say, Nancy. When we bring the bill, which is, just so you know, there's a bill made in order by the Rules Committee that we can call up at any time in order to send it over to the Senate and to have the provisions in there to pay for the impeachment. And then the next step, whatever you want to call it, the trial. That is where you put the managers. I was not prepared to put the managers in that bill yet because we don't know the arena that we are in. Frankly, I don't care what the Republicans say.
The arena is the Senate.
Not on this subject. I've said this is it.
So in case you had a hard time parsing what Miss Pelosi was saying there, I believe she was describing why she's playing games with the articles of impeachment, which, if you guys haven't heard, which I think we might be touching on in one of our other stories, after the House impeached this week, the House is supposed to...
Is he impeached? Is he?
Well, they voted for the impeachment articles. After the impeachment articles are voted on, they need to be sent to the Senate to have their... whatever it is that she was talking about done to them, because I'm not sure that she's clear on that either. So here's what she is holding on to them.
They need to assign someone to be the prosecutor of the case to the Senate, right? And so they can say they haven't appointed someone to go do that, but still, why?
I hope it's Schiff.
No, it'd probably be someone much smarter than Schiff. I'd probably actually be a lawyer who has the unfortunate task risk of trying to take a non-legal argument and a very, very weak political argument and then try to make a legal case based off of it. I feel bad for anyone who has that job.
What do you think the going rate for that position is? Because we know that the going rate to be a witness and a questioner during the impeachment hearings was $100,000 to do both. What do you think the going rate is to donate to the Democrats to be that lawyer to push it over the edge? Yeah, you think they're going to break $1 million for that one?
I think they're going to have to pay the lawyer this time because I think it's not going to be good for the lawyer's career, honestly. One thing they're doing is they know that the impeachment will go away as soon as it goes to the Senate, that the Senate is going to do a vote on it after hearing the prosecution, which is going to come from the House, and the defense. And they know that there is nothing in the prosecution because they've already seen the report and seen all the briefings. They know there is nothing to it. So they will vote to not impeach or not to remove President Trump. So they don't want that because they want to keep generating bad headlines for Trump throughout the rest of the election. So what they're going to do is just keep doing more hearings, trying to find evidence to support the conclusion they've already come to based on no evidence.
Fantastic.
If this sounds absurd to you, it's because you have a brain.
You actually going through and explaining it to me only made me understand it slightly better than how Nancy explained it, but it was not nearly as fun.
Sorry.
It almost looked like she it almost looked like she was doing the sign language interpretation for herself.
Did you play what she was doing with her hands while I was talking? It would have worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
The thing is, if she says it, what is actually happening, it's going to sound like they're playing politics and they're just trying to hurt Trump and not actually go through with a real impeachment, right? And that's not. So she's trying not to say that. She's trying to say some other way that makes it sound good. There's no good way to say it, though.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know that she knows what she was trying to say anyways. She's just up there babbling. I mean, she's done that frequently with with other parts of impeachment. I can't wait for for her to go after whoever posted this and be like, oh, you doctored this video again. Be like, no, but you're just kind of dumb when you talk.
You know what? I bet you even though she talks like she's going senile and may actually be drinking a little bit of alcohol before she talks, I still think she's probably a little more intelligible than AOC is because she doesn't understand the process of the House at all.
I would love to see her and Biden in a debate because it would just be this. It's just two old people barely able to have a conversation.
It'd be a bunch of incoherent speech, a lot of hand waving, and someone's eye will start have a hemorrhage. That'll be it. One of them might have a heart attack.
Well, that'd probably be Nancy using the dark side to blow out his eye. All right, let's move on from this train wreck here.
It's very highbrow commentary we're having here.
Yes, the highest of brows. So high. Alrighty. Well,
Hi.
Our first story is Chunky Yogurt crashes and burns in his race for California Senate. And if you are confused as to who I am talking about, I'm talking about this man, Cenk Uygur, who happens to support Best Itty, and there's some kind of censored portion of that word. I'll let you guess what it is.
I'm sure it's pronounced yogurt.
Yes, I also agree. Do you remember California's disgraced Senator Katie Hill, who resigned after she taught America what a truple is? And after she had abused said members of her truple, who also happened to be her staffers and also happened to be female. My goodness. Man, 2019, man, that is some progress. I mean, we're talking about the end of the decade here. That's some real high progress that we have female congressmen punching their female staffers now. You can go to
That's diversity.
Yeah, that was the progress we made this decade was you can go to the Hill and be a very low-paid staffer, and you can not only get sexually abused by your male congressman, you can also now get sexually abused by your female congressman.
Yeah,
Yay.
but see, it's not sexual abuse when it's a female senator. See, it's just violence sexual.
Yes.
And let's be honest, when they elected her, I mean, lesbians do statistically have a 60% chance of, abusing their spouses.
And they have a 39% chance of not reporting it. So you do the math.
There's a really good chance this was the outcome. Yeah, I remember that the left stood by Kate Hill after she was accused of sexual abuse and abusing her power as a senator by using it to get with her staffers. It showed yet again that the outrage over sexual abuse claims are driven by politics and not by principle. They have demanded that Republicans like Brett Kavanaugh should be denied appointments or should be removed from office. However, when a woman is accused of raping someone, it's no big deal. Remember Alyssa Milano when she was having sex with an underage boy? Guess it wasn't a big problem to them. When Hill stepped down, she blamed it on the evil Republicans abusing her in the media for calling her out on what she actually did, because there was actual claims and evidence that she was abusing people. The victims came out and said, hey, we're being abused, and here's evidence of it. And they're like, oh, she did nothing wrong. It's the Republicans are bad for pointing it out.
So basically what you're saying is she is just a stand-up representation of what it means to be a Democratic congressman. I understand. And to replace such a shining example of what it means to be a Democrat in 2019, after she stepped down, Cenk Uygur, a former MSNBC host and current bestiality advocate, founder of the Young Turks outlet, an outlet named after the genocide of a lot of Armenians, well, presumably all of them, he decided that he was just the type of person that seat needed. And so he has announced that he is running for what's her name? Katie Hill's seat, which is in California. It's the 25th congressional district. And not long after he started his campaign, he came under massive attack by his fellow progressives, saying that he should never hold office, presumably because of some of the things that he said. And supports.
I mean, we also agree with them, probably for different reasons.
I don't know. I'm more of the Colbert route with this. Do it. Just do it.
So
please.
Cenk Uygur is also known for being a shameless denier of the Armenian genocide, an event where Muslims in the Ottoman Empire murdered over 1 million ethnic Armenians.
Well, that doesn't sound like something they would do. That's
not at all.
Weird.
It's inflammatory.
Yes.
Many of them were Christians in concentration camps back in 1915. Cenk not only denies this well-documented genocide, which, I mean, well-documented is another term for fake, right? Making him no better than a Holocaust denier, but also named his podcast The Young Turks, naming it after the group of people who committed the genocide. That's like denying the Holocaust and then going on to call yourself a member of the Nazi Party.
Well, it'd be like a German naming his podcast The SS.
Not suspicious at all. By the way, there was only 1.5 million Armenians in the Ottoman Empire. They killed 2/3 of them, and the rest were either deported or escaped. Just a food for thought.
Cenk's like, man, 1.5 million. That's a really big number. Believing it or not, denying the Armenian genocide is brazenly labeling his podcast after the perpetrators of that genocide is not actually what is hurting his campaign. Oh man, how could that not be? Oh well, I guess it is the Democrats. So okay, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
Okay, yeah, so I guess I understand why it's not that one. So
this
what
like
is it that he's
Democrats who
doing?
Support Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, right? Who defend terrorists and support the destruction of Israel. It wouldn't surprise me if Cenk's denial of the genocide of 1 million Armenians in 1915 wouldn't really bother them very much, as they support genocide now. So, what are the Democrats attacking him over? Was it his open support for bestiality, perhaps?
Let's see here. It was some Republicans have been sharing clips of Cenk suggesting that if he were president, he would legalize people pleasuring animals. But that is not what the Democrats are criticizing him for.
Okay. I guess that makes sense. The far left are advocating that bestiality and pedophilia are sexual orientations under the LGBTQIP except ever C umbrella. So maybe that's why they aren't bothered by his support for bestiality. So what are they upset about?
Well, Dyer, I'm glad you asked. Well, the Democrats are mad at Cenk for saying mean things about women and for saying the N-word. And the N-word is not nougat. On his podcast multiple times. A few examples of things that actually bothered Democrats. More than the denial of genocide was regularly commenting on the appearances of women he talks about during his podcast. Telling her what she should and shouldn't be wearing. And also for making sexist MGTOW-style blog posts 10 years ago before he branded himself as a progressive. And that he has denounced, and he's denounced and apologized for those posts many times. And then again, he has said the N-word while quoting someone else who has also said the N-word. Not dissimilar to poor Papa John.
Exactly. Poor Papa John. He did not deserve that at all. He did nothing wrong. Anyway, so I believe that people can change. So if someone were to say like really progressive, racist things 10 years ago in a blog post, and then over that 10 years they change their politics and advocate against those things, apologize and denounce the things they've said before, I'm inclined to forgive them and give them, let them move on, right? Now Cenk has done that on the other side, right? He's gone to the progressive side, and they don't forgive. They're like, you made a mistake once in your past, you're done.
Well, it depends. It depends on who you are, right? So I mean, why does Cenk not get away with saying the N-word during a quote? But if he was happened to be the Virginia governor talking about murdering babies after they were born, maybe he would get a pass. Maybe you should try that. Maybe you should come out as
babies.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you should come out as pro post-birth abortion. God, I can't even say that. It's like my brain's like, that's not a sentence that makes sense. Or I could just be bad at talking. I don't know.
Wow. So he's said mean things about women. He's described their appearances both negative and positively. And he said the N-word when quoting someone. Gosh, he's basically Hitler, right? I mean, not because he supports and carries the name of a group that actually did what Hitler is most known for, but because he's mean to women. Oh, and let's not forget that Cenk's nephew, Hassan Piker, has also said that American soldiers deserve to be killed while praising the terrorist that killed them.
And was very graphic about how they killed them.
Right.
Actually, the progressives won't be bothered that Hassan saying American soldiers deserve to be killed. They were totally fine with that. As much as maybe if they were Ukrainian soldiers, the Democrats would give a fuck about them, but no, they're just American soldiers. Just pawns that be moved around that board. Actually, they were very upset with Hassan because he called the female hosts on CNN cunts after they criticized him. Thank you for having me say that. Jake Tapper
said, yeah, you're welcome. Jake Tapper said to Hassan on Twitter, absolutely disgusting. The misogyny is appalling. The great and professional Brie Kaler and all the women of CNN are owed an apology. Harumph.
Harumph, I say.
Harumph, I say. How dare you? Following Tapper's criticism of Piker, he responded saying, I'm not referring to the women specifically when I say everyone in establishment media. I'm talking about people like you, Jake. You and everyone else who engages in dishonest smears of this one psycho's Twitter thread just because it targets progressives, which you obviously hate.
To be fair, Hassan is right. CNN is dishonest, and they do smear innocent people all the time. It's kind of their job.
Yeah, and they are cunts. I'm not afraid to say that these people who lie constantly, stir up division and violence in our society, and attempt to destroy people's lives, I would describe them as cunts. So, more power to you, Hassan.
Yes, sir. This drama with Hassan only added to the progressives opposing Cenk's run for Senate. On Thursday, Senator Bernie Sanders, who has not died somehow miraculously, I wonder,
He's tried, though.
Yeah, is he like eating like the blood of like small children or something? How is he staying alive? I don't understand. He had endorsed Cenk for calling him, quote, a voice we desperately need in Congress, end quote, because as we all know, there is not enough genocide deniers in Congress and or bestiality advocates. By the next day, after a torrent of outrage from progressives, Sanders was forced to retract his endorsement because Sanders is just a leaf blowing in the progressive wind. He has no actual positions other than taking your stuff, and he will just flow with the mob. Whatever stuff they want, he will take it. That is his position.
So, Cenk tried to save face by announcing Friday that he will not accept endorsements anymore, as if Sanders' retracting his endorsement had been his idea. And an article was published. No kidding. An article was published that it was actually in Cenk's best interest that Sanders not supporting. Like somehow Sanders was going to hurt Cenk's chances.
Do you remember going back just 2 weeks here, that professor in the impeachment hearing that was talking about how, Democrats really like being with each other and Republicans can't stand being with each other. That's probably why they don't live next to each other. What's this with all of the all the Democrats? They can't even endorse each other because this is not the only matchup where, mutual endorsements are just so toxic to both of them. Any Democrat trying to endorse another Democrat, they're just playing with fire because they all do not like each other because they're all trying to take different slices of different people's things, and that just doesn't line up. So I find that rather funny that was something that a quote unquote professor had presumably investigated and researched, but the practical application of that, we don't see that. We see that anytime the Democrats are getting together and endorsing each other, it just does not work out.
Yeah, Democrats kind of like Mean Girls, where they all hate each other and they only ever work together when they're trying to destroy one of the other Mean Girls.
And some of them are actual Mean Girls, like the Squad.
Right. So the truth is that even though Cenk has devoted everything he has to towing the progressive line, even though he has supported every progressive cause, argued for them, and contributed money to them, it doesn't matter. He was even expelled from the progressive organization, Just Us Democrats, that he helped create. The truth is that he is too male and too white, even though he probably doesn't call himself white. He's too white. The monster he has created has turned on him. The progressives will never vote for him.
Yep, and he's been right there behind every other cancel culture effort. Now he's been so upset about it coming back to bite him all the time. And let that be a lesson to some people. White. Just because you started the organization doesn't mean it can't oust you.
Yes. So that's absolutely true. It's kind of funny. It's kind of poetic. He's been so supportive of cancel culture, and it comes for him. It's just so freaking poetic.
Yeah. Well, maybe someday when he grows up, he'll realize that he's a conservative.
Okay, Cece. So when we've had people who are black make the argument in identity politics that light-skinned people are the white people of black people. right? So basically, even when white people aren't around, they're still racist based on how white you are, and you have eyes. He is more white than someone who is black. That's what too white means. Not he is white, not that it matters, but he's too light-skinned for them to support. Okay? Jeez, learn English. Okay, next story.
Alrighty. Let's see here. Oh, this one's fun. Okay. Trump signs the largest military funding bill in U.S. history, which is both very exciting and very terrifying if you are a budget hawk like me, and also like the military like me. So I'm very confused. Help me understand. All right, actually, I guess I'll help me understand because I'm reading first here. So yesterday, Trump and Melania gave a speech at Joint Air Force Base Andrews Naval Air Facility in Washington. Man, that is a mouthful of a base name. Where he announced that he had just signed the largest National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, NDAA. This historic funding bill not only devotes a record $738 billion for military spending for the fiscal year 2020, but it also establishes the creation of funding for the fifth branch of the U.S. military, which is the U.S. Space Force, which will be headquartered at Joint Air Force Base Andrews. It's very exciting. Space,
Yes.
the final frontier.
How long before we get our own space, our own Star Trek style spaceships?
You don't have one? Must have lost yours in the mail. I don't know.
Yeah, it's in the mail, I hope. So I have a few criticisms for this bill, but by and large, this bill is a great thing for the U.S. military and a great thing for our country by connection. The U.S. military suffered badly under Obama, and his final year in 2015, he allocated only $590 billion for the armed forces, which is a drop from the yearly funding from $699 billion in 2007. The left have argued that Obama's reduction in funding was due to a reduction in military operations, but that only makes up for a relatively small amount of the spending. We were still deployed to the Middle East and dropping bombs and manning bases during the Obama era, and in 2015 when he gave us that very low budget, even and through to now as well. We have less people deployed and we're dropping less bombs now, but we were doing a lot more then. But I think last year we were dropping way more bombs. But that's a side note. The cost difference between the change in operations does not come near to explaining the reduction in cost. The left ignore the Obama era funding was under sequestration, which means that every military branch was being given 75% of what they said they needed to operate, just off the base. Whatever they requested, they were only going to get 75% of it, right? And they could only request so much from based on the previous years. The money that wasn't paid, the money that they cut wasn't coming from actual operations. That money came from operations back at home. So we're not going to take the money away from the soldiers in the field. So all that money came from our ability to innovate, to train soldiers, train pilots, and to repair our aging equipment.
So Trump bragged during his speech that in the first 4 years of his presidency, he has already invested $2.5 trillion into the military. Here is what the bill for the coming year includes. It includes a raise for military members by 3.1%. Oh, congratulations, Dyer. This is the largest raise for the military in the last 10 years. This is important because military members aren't paid very much in the first place. During the Obama era, the yearly increase to military member wages was well below inflation. This increase helps catch those wages up.
Again, this bill funds the Space Force, congratulations,
Yay!
Those Space Marines, and sets their headquarters in Washington. This seems to make this seems like a bad idea. Why would Trump want to invest all of this money into a small community? Why wouldn't he invest into a small community? I don't know, somewhere more politically advantageous, like in a battleground state or something like that, rather than in Washington D.C., where they're already rich and it's in a highly populated area. I do want to point out that after doing some research, I found that all of the military branches headquarters are also in Washington.
Yeah, didn't the military invent the entire concept of the internet so that we could have scattered bases and scattered headquarters, and that they could maintain communication even after, broad scale nuclear attack ruining the phone lines? And they just let's just put them all in one damn place, not spread out our eggs at all.
Yeah, so this isn't Trump's fault, because apparently we've been doing this forever, but it seems like a massive tactical error to put all of the top brass of all our military branches in the same city.
It's also in a hurricane highway. It's also gets just snowmageddons every 2 years. Presumably the sea level's rising and it's going to be underwater in the next 50 years. I mean, there's 1,000 reasons why DC is the worst place for any of these headquarters in the first place, and even more so to put a new one there.
One of the top 8 principles of war is to have a dispersed force, right? So that no one attack takes out the majority of your military force.
Yes, but the top principle guiding the swamp is to consolidate as much things into the swamp as possible. So Trump just planted this amazing Space Force tree, and he just threw that seed right into the swamp for it to get swallowed up. And should it ever grow, the swamp things will be climbing that tree as fast as it's growing.
Yeah. So I think it's a bit of a tactical error. I mean, now the terrorists have one place to hit rather than a bunch.
Well, and not to mention, just from a space physics point of view, you want it to be, not necessarily that they're going to be launching the spaceships from that base, but why wouldn't you have your headquarters at a base that you could actually launch shuttles from? But you would want your launch pads to be much further south. The Cape Canaveral is a great place because it's a lot further south, and you can take off over the ocean. But the further south you are, the closer to the equator, the faster the Earth is spinning at the equator, and it gives you a boost when you're trying to get up to orbit. The higher north you are, it takes almost double the amount of rocket fuel to get up, just because the Earth isn't spinning fast enough for you to get up that high. So it just doesn't make sense from a space physics point of view either.
Yeah, I know that they have NASA facilities they're going to take over for the purpose of the Space Force. I know they have Air Force facilities that already exist for Space Command, but I don't see why the headquarters has to be physically so close to Washington. They have the ability to communicate and travel so easily, and this doesn't require them to be there, right? But whatever.
Yes.
Next thing.
All right. Let's see here. The bill also created the first ever paid family leave for all federal workers. That doesn't sound like a military thing. The purchase of 90 F-35s. Trump said 100, but the records show that 2 allotments of F-35s that will total 90. That was some of the parts of the speech. The actual what was said during the speech is a little bit not quite what the real budget says, but we'll chalk that up to the errors in Trump's writing staff, or Trump just trying to kind of exaggerate a little bit, which he's known to do every now and then. We'll throw him a bone on that one. We'll see here. The F-35s are the 90 of them are at least in part being purchased to then be sold to our allies. Using that word lightly. This bill, however, specifically limits the sale of F-35s to Turkey. This purchase, yes, allies in quotes. This purchase makes up $12.2 billion of the total budget.
The bill also authorized only $3 billion for the new B-21 stealth bomber that is meant to replace the aging B-1B bomber. This aircraft is far more effective and far more needed than than the F-35 is, but received 1/4 of the funding.
How much
For
did
for comparison, it carries like 9 times the number of bombs and is actually stealth. Whatever.
Well, maybe it has to do with the changing future of war, which may be a future topic of discussion at some point on the show. But we will discuss that at another time. Let's see here. This bill, the NDAA, also supports the full funding request of $1 billion for 48 AH-64E attack helicopters for the Army, which is also something that I often identify as an Army attack helicopter. $2 billion for 24 Boeing FA-18EF Super Hornet fighters for the Navy, and $1.1 billion for 8 Boeing F-15EX jets for the Air Force. Coincidentally, the F-15EX is far cheaper and far more effective at fighting than the F-35.
On a side note, Congress has proposed buying 1,763 F-35s
For
over the
80
next 80 years.
What the hell? What?
Yes. Over the next 80 years.
What is the idea that any military equipment now would be useful in 80 years? What would
exactly?
What would the like? What are they using to like? What do we have that was 80 years old? You know, that we were using in the military 80 years ago that we're still using as like one of our like bread and butter equipment pieces. Anything? Maybe radios.
Okay, so Lockheed Martin is trying to get a steady income flow. All right.
there's a solid chance that Lockheed won't be around in 80 years, at least not as Lockheed. I mean, there's every probability. I mean, you're going that far out. I mean, we might not even be using the dollar at that point. Who knows?
Geez. In 80 years, they'll probably have already replaced that aircraft with something better.
And the alien, we'll have disclosure by that point. I'll be able to use the alien propulsion hovercraft at that point. I don't think we're going to be needing the F-35s. You'll probably be able to drive around F-35s to work in the 80 years from now. every civilian will have their own F-35. It'll be like the Hummer when the Humvees used to just be military equipment, and then now everybody's got a Hummer in their parking lot, in their garage. Now, in 80 years from now, everybody's going to have an F-35.
Geez. The F-35 has proven to be expensive and ineffective because of the flawed process by which it was designed. We have 4 branches all saying they needed an aircraft with different requirements, and they had to design that one aircraft with 4 different models to meet those needs. The aircraft also needed to be a bomber, and it also needed to be an air-to-air platform. It had to be able to do everything. It also had to be a jammer. It also had to be made to fit the needs of foreign nations that we hope to sell the aircraft to. Now, so it became a very expensive jack of all trades, master of none.
Sounds like a Swiss Army knife that was made in China.
Exactly. The F-15EX, on the other hand, was designed to do exactly what the Air Force needed and nothing more than the Air Force needed, and it does it far better than the F-35. It carries more weapons, it flies farther, and it is less expensive. A number of lawmakers and retired generals viewed this proposal of buying F-15EXs as a threat to the F-35 program. My opinion is that all those lawmakers and retired generals should be removed from office immediately, because they're putting you're saying you want something because of treaties and because of economic reasons, like for the company. It benefits the company. The F-35 does not benefit the United States in any fucking way. It only is there to help the military-industrial complex and not the warfighter. I'm okay when the military-industrial complex benefits because they're producing something the warfighter actually needs, right? That they're actually helping the country, and then they're benefiting from their own labors. I'm totally fine with that. The F-15EX does what the nation needs and is also profitable. The F-35 is a boondoggle that's made to steal money from the government and give to companies.
I don't know if you guys can tell, but offline, Dyer actually really likes the F-35. He thinks it's a great airplane.
Fuck the F. I hate it.
Oh, dear. The Navy will also be getting $34.7 billion, the largest request in more than 20 years, for shipbuilding. Presumably because they kept crashing their ships into each other, but that's a story for another day. To grow and modernize the Navy's fleet. Hopefully modernize them so that they don't crash into each other. The NDAA supports the construction of 3 DDG-51 Arleigh Brooke class destroyers, a frigate, and an amphibious ship. Does that mean it's got wheels on it? The 3 unmanned surface vessels as well. This bill also adds that the United States must maintain a minimum of 11 aircraft carriers in order to, quote, protect our interests around the world. And it also supports a plan to buy 10 Virginia-class attack submarines. Fantastic. For the fight on land, the NDAA fully funds the Pentagon's budget request for ground combat systems, which includes $500 million for 131 armored multi-purpose vehicles, and $2.2 billion for 165 Abrams tanks. The measure also puts forth funds to modernize 152 Stryker combat vehicles.
The Stryker combat vehicle was another one of those politically designed vehicles, if I remember the name correctly, where they originally just requested a troop carrier, and then they every time they brought it back to the military and civilian leaders, they kept saying they wanted other things. And some people wanted a tank, some people wanted a troop carrier, some people wanted other things, and they just ended up designing this Frankenstein that doesn't do anything. Right?
I can't wait for the next generation of your combat vehicles that are designed by committee for them to be electric, and then you guys will have another one that follows it around that's got a diesel generator on it to charge.
That is so absurd it sounds real.
That'll happen at the end of the next decade.
So a light tank was never designed intentionally, but the Stryker combat vehicle is basically a light tank. What is the point of a light tank? Think about it. If it's a tank against tanks, you need armor on it, right? Why would you make a tank with no armor and then a small cannon that cannot actually pierce a tank? There's actually no reason for it.
not a fodder and a you have something that distracts the enemy. It confuses them. they just don't fire because they're not sure what they're looking at.
So Defeat Jihadis put a great gif with some awesome boobs. I support, but also other than having a great name, he said that he is good for having a military that stays home. I totally support a military that stays home, except for when they're needed, right?
Yeah, I want to.
So I prefer.
Let's put in $100 billion into just the entire east and west coast and the north and south border. Let's just put as many Iron Dome style systems up and just have the entire border just lined with stuff that can take out anything at a moment's notice. We'll just keep building that up until there's just a giant fortress of America, and then we don't have to go anywhere. Even if they suck, we don't have to go there.
I really do want more anti-air systems along our borders. No kidding.
I don't know why. I mean, just from a civilian point of view of, I don't really know what's going on, but this would make sense to me kind of a point of view. Why wouldn't we have just the ability to, within 2 minutes, be able to take out literally anything at any point in our airspace over America, or within 100 miles of it? Why do we not just have rocket launchers on the top of every building and every field?
That might be a little excessive. I don't think
excessive.
SAM sites in,
I say safe.
I don't think having SAM sites along our border is going to trap people in. It's going to be hard to stop people with SAM sites. So you could try. They have limited bullets / missiles. They're not going to stop someone trying to escape. No, it's not like the Berlin Wall or like having gunners keeping people inside the states. No. It's preventing missiles and aircraft from coming in that are hostile. But even then, I think it probably more along the lines of drones that can be launched to strike targets that are coming in.
Yes. Or just instead of that, maybe just a giant drone network of, let's buy, instead of was it 2,000 of these F-35s over the next 80 years? Let's buy 2,000 drones over the next year and just have them just running a pattern over the top of the United States forever. They're probably doing that anyways.
I mean, they actually are buying drones for border security, which I think is a good idea. They're fairly cheap to operate compared to, say, a jet aircraft, and they can stay up there for a really long time. They can provide surveillance that even when you have gaps in the wall / fence / thing that isn't really a fence, but they say it is a fence, you can still see people and still you can direct our border security to where they're needed, right? I like, we have a limited resources, right? I like when our guys are being the most efficient. So put the guards where people are breaking in.
You say we have limited resources while we're discussing a story about $750 billion.
Okay, so the reason why we have limited resources is because we misuse what we have. That's my biggest problem with this, right? So my biggest problem with this appropriations bill is that politics clearly are driving the direction of the funding. It appears we have wasted a great deal of money that was provided to us, but it still was necessary. We still need money. We just need to make sure we're spending it more responsibly. We are underinvesting in effective weapons platforms while investing heavily in ineffective ones. Yes, I'm talking about you, F-35. And I get, because I have personal knowledge of the F-35, why it's bad, right? But I'm wondering myself, is there someone else in other branches of the military that are reading this article and saying, oh, because their experience with Abrams tanks or with the Stryker weapons vehicle or with the attack helicopter, that they also are seeing problems, right? I'm wondering if I just don't know it because I don't have the experience with those platforms. Are they also bad purchases? I don't know. I just know the F-35 is. So also, I want to mention that something we don't see on the budget's also important. We don't see drones being mentioned in the summary of this bill. And though funding is going to purchase and sustain towards purchasing and sustainment of drones, they are doing that. It's not mentioned in the summary, but yes, we do have drones and we are purchasing them for all the branches. They all are getting drones. But it's clear that the purchase and advancement of these drone technologies is not a priority because they didn't mention it as being one of the hot button tickets, right? And they didn't devote a large portion of the budget towards that. And that bothers me because that is the real future of warfare, to reduce the size of our military, but increase its effectiveness by many times.
So here's a question, Dyer. Oops, that is not Dyer. That is Shadow Wolf. Oops. There we go. So we've seen other stories during the Trump administration where he has taken extra money that the military has laying around in some pile somewhere and moved it to places like border security. Is it possible that some of these absurd purchases that are not actually purchased quite yet, like this gaggle of F-35s, that perhaps after the bill gets passed, that order might be adjusted in some way and that pile of money gets shifted into something like drones?
The short answer is, hypothetically, that is possible. So the money that he took for the border initially was unused money that was meant for emergency response. So it was like he declared emergency. This is a response to emergency. It actually wasn't that big of a leap, Yeah. So it'd be a bigger leap to say, hey, there was a problem with F-35s. We don't want it anymore. Let's reallocate this money this 12 billion towards the wall. I mean, it's
Well,
he's
no,
the
I don't mean
president.
for the wall, but I mean towards drones. So I mean, it wouldn't be a very big leap to say, okay, well,
Oh.
the F-35 is not a big. We change our mind on that one, but we do want the ability to do what the F-35s were going to do, and we think we can accomplish that with drones. And so let's just shift that money into drones. Is that a possibility?
That is a possibility. I'm not sure. I mean, there's a lot of vested interest of career politicians and military members who have investment, like high brass that probably have investment in these companies.
Can we pass a bill that it's absolutely illegal for anybody in Congress, running for Congress, and any of their immediate family members to have any kind of investment in the military-industrial complex?
It is already illegal for them to have direct investment, right? But if you have a family member, no, it is illegal.
I
but
know it's illegal,
are they
but I'm
enforcing it? I
calling.
don't-
Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on they're actually enforcing that and not just hiding that investment somehow.
They usually launder it through someone they know to make
Yeah.
it legal, right? But I'm not. Obviously, that's a problem. But I don't know how to solve that necessarily. But I do know that they could allocate some funds that are unused, like say they don't build the F-35s, they decide to go away from the contract, they'd have all that money sitting there, they could reallocate it to something else that was necessary. They really do need to invest in, there's other drones being made by Lockheed Martin and Boeing and all. They have combat drones they're building and trying to sell to the military that are pretty impressive, but they're also super expensive for no reason. They got like $1 billion drone out there.
Well,
for
it's
sale.
probably because we have military budgets that are $750 billion. Like, somebody's got to soak up that money.
Sorry, I said $1 billion drone. I did mean $1 million drone, but still, the drone shouldn't be $1 million. I'm trying to say. You could buy a lot of them for $1 million.
Well, I look forward to in 80 years having my own personal F-35 in my garage.
Well,
and driving it to work.
If I ever become president and or somehow am in charge of a military budget that's bigger than what I currently am in charge of, I will do the best I can to get us moving towards drones. Because if we keep investing in worthless aircraft like F-35, the other countries that are currently investing in innovating with drone technology, they will surpass us. And thing is, you can make a drone that'll take down an F-35, one drone taking down an F-35 for a fraction of the cost.
Where does so they're talking about selling these F-35s though? Where does the profits from that go? Could that go into are those profits earmarked already? Could those go into drones?
So anytime the government has a deal, they see the future payouts of that deal as income and they borrow against it.
Fantastic. So this is not only going to drive up the debt directly, it's also going to drive up our ability to get more credit. Awesome. Thank you. Good job.
So
Golf clap.
I'm not a super fan of this whole situation. I'd rather just not build them and sell them. Build your own goddamn jets kind of personality here, but whatever. At least we're selling them shit.
Great. Can't wait to fight against it after they have their next revolution, whoever we're selling it to, because that seems to be I can say that with relative certainty without knowing who specifically is going to be buying and using them, because that tends to be the pattern over the course of 30, 40 years, is we're always fighting whatever we sold somebody 40 years ago after they had a revolution of some kind.
Well, if it makes you feel better, the F-35 doesn't stand a chance against the F-15 EX. So
It does make you feel a little bit better.
And one of those 15Es EXs could shoot down multiple F-35s, whereas F-35, even if they got a good kill on a 15EX, they just kill one probably. Anyways, moving on. I'm glad Trump, is, helping rebuild the military after what Obama did to it. I'm glad what he did was a positive. But
this will certainly keep the economy gassed for the next election. That's for sure.
But what I would really appreciate is if either the people advising Trump or Trump were to actually look at what the people are requesting and kind of sift through the bullshit and put money towards the future. Don't invest into things that are not the future of warfare. Because, I'm okay that in the future of warfare, my job will no longer exist. But because I'm a military member, they'll just retrain me to something else. I'm okay with that. I'm not attached to doing the job I'm doing now. I just want to serve, right? Most military are like that, right? So don't try to maintain a system to maintain those jobs for no reason. I want to no longer be necessary so it can be more effective.
If only Lockheed felt the same way.
But yeah, they don't.
Alrighty. Ready for the next story?
Yep, ready.
Alrighty, cool. Alrighty, so man, this one's a shocker, guys. Alright, so I know that this may come as a shock to some of you, and so if you guys are standing up right now, I would recommend that you sit down. If you are driving, you may want to pull over, because what I'm about to tell you may cause you to question your entire reality. It has been reported that CNN has been paying airports to air CNN.
Lay gasp!
Gasp!
Say it ain't so.
Oh my goodness. Now I know that this is a difficult truth to swallow, but I promise we will all make it through this together. We can do it, guys. We can do it. It has been long speculated that CNN's only viewership has come from its captive audience in airport terminals. One time, there was even a 4chan Spec Ops mission to use universal remotes to change all the channels in various airport terminals in an effort to reduce CNN's ratings. But all jokes aside, a recent investigation has revealed that the allegations of fake viewership are actually very, very real.
CNN does this by offering a special bribe, or as they call it, a programming package called CNN Airport. The package combines news, sports, and travel while tastefully removing any mentions of airline disasters. How thoughtful. The package also gives airports a minimum of $150,000 in cash per year, and in many cases also pays for the TV and cable infrastructure within the airports. Isn't it funny? Usually when you sell someone a TV package, they're actually buying it from you. You aren't paying them to take it from you. Is that real viewership? I mean, who actually is closely watching CNN? And it's not like someone chose to watch that. Like, commercials are usually based on the fact that someone chose to watch that. They turned it on and they chose to watch that channel. So the commercial actually knows there's someone there basically to see their product. Whereas in these airports, there's no guarantee. It could be playing for no one. And no one chose that channel. Those commercials, they're getting ripped off.
Yes. According to CNN's own numbers, this package is being aired at over 2,400 gates throughout the country in approximately 60 of the nation's largest airports. This accounts for about 323 million viewers per year. A quick Google search reveals that the going rate for purchasing YouTube views is about $2.40 per thousand. So as far as fake viewership goes, CNN is really overpaying here. 323 million YouTube views would only cost them about $775,000. But at this $150K minimum across 60 airports, they're paying at minimum $9 million a year to keep this upkept. Not to mention paying for various TVs and cabling infrastructure within the terminals. When asked about why, when some of the terminals were asked about why they don't show other networks, one Salt Lake City rep basically said that, well, CNN is the only network willing to bribe them.
In short, not only is CNN fake news, they are watched by fake viewers. Oh, geez. So at a certain point, though, their company will have shrunk so much because their viewership is tanking that they no longer will be able to keep paying this $9 million for these propped up numbers, right? And I mean, oh, gee, what was CNN one of the ones that broadcasted the debate last Thursday?
Probably. I don't know. I did not watch the debate. I couldn't be. I could not be bothered.
MSNBC got the majority of the views. Yeah. So you are not alone. So MSNBC got the majority of the views, but the views from across all the networks and the live stream was only 6 million views. Not 6 million views for CNN. They got a fraction of that. Whereas the last Trump rally got 24 million.
Yeah, and I wonder how many of those million views for CNN again that they were playing to airport terminals that are either not paying attention or are empty. You know, at least at this time of year they're probably full. But you'd imagine that the fuller the airport terminal is, the less you're paying attention because there's so much going on around you.
Imagine being at an airport in Christmas season and being forced to watch Democrat debates.
Jesus, that's even more torturous than. Never mind.
That's inhuman.
Yeah,
why would you do that to people?
There's actually one of their biggest airports, LAX, was talking about not renewing this this bribery contract because they nobody's watching it anyways, and it's just cheaper for even. I didn't really understand why they said it was cheaper for them, but they basically said that it was cheaper for them to not accept this bribe money and just focus on keeping their free Wi-Fi up, because most travelers nowadays are they're just curating their own news on their phone or their devices. They're not looking at the TVs or anything like that.
Well, you can just have a computer running what's on your TVs instead of actually paying for a TV service.
Yeah, well,
TV service is not necessary.
And you were asking earlier about did I watch the debate? Well, even if I had, it wouldn't have been on CNN and it wouldn't have been on cable because I don't have cable. It would have been on one of the YouTube streams.
Exactly. So they can actually do digital television instead of actually having a TV service. That's probably what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to have all the cable plugged in. They just have Wi-Fi to the televisions.
And not being able to see airplane disasters, I don't know. It just seems like false advertising. What's the point of TV?
Yeah, I want to see before I buy. You know?
Exactly. So, but yeah.
You know what?
Go ahead.
I want to sell them a channel service that is all airplane disasters, just so they're doing truth in advertising.
So
Fair warning.
The Airplane Disaster Channel. I think that this is funny that this is coming out now because there's been we obviously read the Veritas reports earlier this year about the way that CNN has been curating their own content. We've seen both them saying internally and also other reports of their ratings sliding very deeply, and even keeping all of that in mind, their ratings are slumping, but they've got this huge chunk of those ratings.
Be gone from me, you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
Oh.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. I couldn't make it to tonight's stream because I am in the mountains with spotty signal. Here is a little Christmas gift. Buy yourselves some chocolate or get Fox a book on how to audio properly. Either way, enjoy.
Cries.
Thank you,
cries silently because the audio didn't go through. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Triumvirate. Much appreciation. We will both get ourselves something nice. Thank you very much for that Christmas gift.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, so even as I was saying, we've seen lots of reports about CNN's ratings slumping, but just remember, anytime that their ratings are slumping, a huge part of the ratings that are left are just the static 200 or 2,400 just gates throughout the country where there's just countless TVs playing CNN to nobody watching. So while their ratings are slumping, there's still the ratings that are left are just nobody. They're not real ratings, and they still cannot keep their numbers up. I mean, you poll 323 million viewers, which is fake. That's entirely fake. There's no way 323 million people are actually watching CNN in a given year in airport terminals. I would be surprised if that number was 323, just regular 323. So you pull 323 million views out of CNN per year. I mean, geez, what's left? I should have looked up what their actual yearly viewership is across their actual network, but I can't imagine that there's much left after that.
It's even worse than that, actually. So every military installation that has a chow hall, which they will all do basically. So they have a requirement that they can only play certain channels in those chow halls if they have TVs there playing something, right? Not everyone does, obviously. But and on the list is CNN and Fox News and like some sports channels. So they usually have one of each on. And no one likes to watch CNN, so the audio is always turned down to 0. And no one's watching. So they get more fake views than you think.
Yeah, so like I was saying, LAX was talking about not renewing the contract, which when you think that it's a better use of your money to not get free money from somebody and just to invest your actual money in somewhere else, that's pretty bad.
Yeah,
like it's not even worth $150,000 to get paid to have
can't
CNN.
pay me to watch CNN.
But other airports are talking about doing the same thing. That's obviously a trend. When CNN started doing this, there's been reports they've been doing this for at least a decade, if not much longer. And so, it made more sense back then when people didn't have wireless devices, 20 years ago, and even spotty ones 10 years ago. But what's that?
And when back when CNN had credibility.
Yeah, you have to go pretty far back for that. But definitely moving into the next decade, it makes less and less sense to be running CNN in airport terminals. People are just going to be using their own devices if they want news, and most of the time they really don't want news. So the trend with LAX, that's sure to pick up with other airports, and we could see as CNN is continuously letting their credibility with their few real viewers that they have, just continuously letting that credibility on fire, they're also going to start losing those fake viewers too, which is going to be devastating, and I cannot wait for it.
There'll be no one left. All right, next story.
All righty.
Okay, I'll just run this one real quick then. So J.K. Rowling is under attack because she said that men aren't women. How dare you?
How dare you?
The regressive left is super outraged because she supported a person named Maya Forrester, who was fired from her job, or rather wasn't. Her contract wasn't renewed because she tweeted out the statement: "Smart people I admire are tying themselves in knots to avoid saying the truth that men cannot change into women because that might hurt men's feelings." So basically saying no matter what you do, surgery, hormones, whatever, genetically you do not change from man to woman. It does, or vice versa. And J.K. Rowling said in a tweet, "Dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, sleep with any consenting adult who will have you, live your best life in peace and security, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real? ? I stand with Maya." So that statement there, that seems like she's obviously J.K. Rowling is very much a progressive. She's just saying that it's you firing someone, doing cancel culture on someone because they state a biological reality. That doesn't make sense. And because of her supporting that, now everyone on the regressive left is calling her transphobic and denouncing her. So the left once again eating its own.
So here's what I don't get. We've seen this happen a few times with other feminists, and there's not in general, I think we've, the right, we have to attack feminism, the version of it that is modern, but the original intent for feminism, I think most of the right nowadays, we don't have a real issue with that. There's some of the extreme right is, they actually do want the women back in the kitchen. But I think in general, you and I are both perfectly fine with women wanting to have careers and living their own lives and doing their thing. But you get into this, the what that became was this, expansion into transgenderism and wanting all these special privileges, and now the trannies are really picking up with that and going over and trying to say, okay, well, we want to have men who have gone through no surgeries or anything like that. We want them to be able to go into women's spaces, and if women complain about it, we want to cancel them, and that's been going on for a while now. I think the right has seen that for a while now. And so while we're fine with the previous iteration of this, we are less fine with this current iteration because it is actually putting women into danger. It is a very real danger. And there's a lot of women that are concerned about that. And there's a lot on the right that are concerned about that because we do care about women, contrary to what they might think. But this is not a new thing. And so every time I see this, where you have one of these more traditional feminists coming up against, which a lot of people are calling them TERFs, coming up against the transgender movement. We've seen this multiple times, and every time I'm kind of thinking, where have you been? This is not the first. So the person that J.K. Rowling's talking about, that happened recently, happened towards the end of the summer, I believe, because I recognize the story a little bit. But that wasn't the first time that's happened. I mean, this is where was J.K. Rowling before that? Where was she a couple of years ago? Where have these people been? We're trying to, some people have put it that we're forging a new way that society works with transgender individuals in society, and we don't really know what the rules are for society yet. We haven't come to a good grips on that. So we're still, why we're having this conflict right now is because we're trying to figure out what is that best path forward that everybody's happy with. And the transgenders just happen to have the loudest voice in that argument. But again, the right has said, okay, if you guys keep this going, if you just allow whoever to go into women's spaces, that's going to be danger for them. And we've basically been told, okay, well, shut up. We're not interested in your opinion. We're not interested in your opinion on feminism. If you're not a girl, you can't talk about it, that sort of stuff. And so J.K. Rowling's part of that same group of feminists that have been completely uninterested in male opinions or the right's opinions for basically the entire time that they've been a feminist. And then now all of a sudden, she finds some common cause with us when she realizes what's happening, and she realizes that her and her feminist allies are now in danger because of this transgender movement. And it's part of me is like, told you so, and part of me is like, I don't know, do we help them? And then the other part of me is like, well, if we do go to help them, do they even want our help? And I really just don't know what to do with this. But it's it's just over and over again. Where have you been? Where have you been? This is not the first time that's happened.
It's also important to point out that the anti-science, the science denial, regressive left that are advocating, that are the biggest voices of the trans movement, don't actually represent trans people. They make ridiculous claims and wanting the society to bend their back and break processes and change society so much to fit them, whereas a lot of trans people who I actually know and have met, as some in the military actually, they actually just want to fit in, and they only want a exception where it is a physical limitation.
Well, we see that across all these different identity groups. I mean, it's the same with LGBT, it's the same with minorities, it's the same with class. The Marxist cultural, the cultural Marxism. You've got these elites that pick up on these groups, and they use, in the context of a class, they might use the lower class as a tool for them personally getting power. And with LGBT, we see a lot of people and that are looking to use that as a cudgel to beat people over the head with, that they're using that group for power to gain power themselves. But the main constituents of that group they don't really feel represented by these, quote unquote thought leaders. And it's the same thing with the transgender community. They're quote unquote thought leaders that are out there beating people like J.K. Rowling over the head and trying to get, actual feminists fired from their jobs because they don't feel safe. Those are not the people that most transgenders are feeling represented by. And so we see that over and over and over again. These thought leaders, they're not representative of the actual community that they're claiming to derive their power from.
Ironically, it seems like most of the advocates for the trans community are actually just trans trenders, people who have latched on to the trans identity because it makes them feel special, gives them influence, makes them feel like they're treated differently and better in some ways, and then allows them to have that victim narrative that people have valued so much.
Well, and that's kind of the formula for acquiring power through Marxism, through the cultural Marxism, is you've got to identify a victim group. It doesn't matter what victim group. You've got to make them feel like they're a victim. Doesn't matter how you do that. And then you have to use that victimhood as a means, as an excuse for why you deserve power and why whoever's in charge is wrong. And it doesn't really matter who's in each of those positions, but you just need to find a victim group and a group that's not victimized and just pit them against each other and then try and ride that to the top.
Yeah, I just find it ironic that they often call Republicans the anti-science when they're literally claiming that there's no difference between men and women.
As something of a scientist myself, I typically find that people talking about science and politics are not talking about science. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
Words do have meanings. I know it's Petsky, but they do have meanings.
Right. So, that was a story we didn't write. Moving on.
Yes, we.
That was definitely Fox's fault. Thank you for taking responsibility for that.
Definitely my fault. It's my fault for inviting you back on as a guest. We'll try and resolve that next week. Sorry, audience. Sorry, Wolfpack. We'll try and find a better guest for me to have on the show next week.
All right, next story.
All righty. Do you want to say goodbye to anybody?
Oh yeah, we should say goodbye to YouTube. So if you're watching us on YouTube right now, we're not long for the world on YouTube. We talk about stuff that YouTube doesn't like. And
we said the word bestiality like 4 times earlier.
We also said Nazis and Hitler. Our video is probably not being shared anyways, but just a matter of time before they delete our channel, right? So before that happens, if you want to keep seeing our content, you're going to have to go to the description below and go to DLive and just follow us there. If you have a YouTube account, then it transfers very easily over to DLive. And that's where we live stream 3 times a week. So please come on over, follow us on DLive, because we are shutting YouTube off. The second half of the show is YouTube free. Sorry. We are going to miss you. Please join us. Bye.